It's nice to see so many people here in the Ilford Town Hall to hear about Jeremy's new kind of politics. My name's Helen Watson, I'm a Unison convener. I'm also a local Labour Party Women's Officer, and I'm one of the conveners of Redbridge Momentum. Now, I come to this wonderful building quite a lot, as some of you sitting at the front will know. My sons play in orchestras and bands, which are run by the brilliant Redbridge Music Service. So we have all our concerts and events here. But for the last 2 years, I found myself outside the building, lobbying and campaigning against cuts and outsourcing of our borough's musical education. I think often we're told that cuts are inevitable, that we've got no choice, that we have to accept the Tories' austerity. So you don't know how happy it made me when Jeremy was elected leader of Labour, when the message was different, that Jeremy's new politics said austerity was a choice, not a necessity. That we could aspire to a society that wasn't just dominated by cuts in things like our children's education and public services. And it appears from tonight that I'm not the only person that thinks so. It's great to see so many of you here, especially in the middle of the school summer holidays. And it's also great to be part of a Labour Party that's 600,000 strong, who want to see an end to austerity and a different, more kinder society in Britain. This meeting has been organised by Momentum, which was set up to take the enthusiasm of Jeremy's campaign and use it to bring Labour to power in this country. Tonight we have great speakers to talk about their campaigns and why they are supporting Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party. Our first speaker is Bhaskar from Redbridge MUT, who's going to speak about local teachers' campaigns against academies and cuts. Bhaskar.
As Aislinn said, my name is Bhaskar Bhadresha. I'm a Redbridge MUT committee member. I'm also nervous. Not for the obvious reasons, but because I might have taught some of your children, or maybe even you. Now, I just want to say a few words about why teachers are striking. Now, I tell people that I'm a happy teacher. Now, the reason why I'm a happy teacher is because I'm a retired teacher. A couple of years ago, I retired. That's the best thing I ever did. But don't take this the wrong way. I love teaching. Yeah? All teachers love teaching. Yeah? We love being in the classroom. We love the interaction with the children. Educating them. That's great. Even the more challenging pupils, we love it. We look forward to it. But we don't teach anymore. We fill in forms. What stresses teachers is the pointless paperwork and the bureaucratic workload. It makes, as a result, teachers get ill. Some teachers even get suicidal. The lucky ones leave. Now, to add to that, there's the endless reform. Now, if I was to ask you, in the new GCSEs, if your child gets a grade 2, is that good or bad? Yeah, basically, like, they just invent things. I could also tell you about how some young teachers sleep on sofas because they can't afford to rent. But the union's action is not just about us. It's about defending education. As you know, academies and free schools are a way of privatising education. It reduces local accountability. Austerity is squeezing public services, including education. 3.9 million children are living in poverty. That's more than a quarter of the children in one of the most richest countries in the world. Now, how can a child concentrate on learning on an empty stomach? So what we ask you to do is support us, support the doctors, support Jeremy Corbyn, who's always stood by us. Defend the NHS and defend the welfare state. And defend the welfare state. Yeah? And also, please visit the NUT stall at the back, where Bob Archer will be happy to talk to you. He's a lot more informed and, well, he will tell you a lot more than I can. Yeah? Also, if there's enough people interested, we can have a public meeting about the education crisis in Redbridge and or in East London. Yeah? So please come to the back and visit the store. Lastly, I said I was a lucky teacher. Also a happy teacher, a lucky teacher. The reason why I'm a lucky teacher is that I was able to retire. The reason for that is the generation before me and my generation fought for my paying conditions. What we have to do now is fight again for our paying conditions. Who knows when people will be able to retire in the future? They'll get away with anything we let them get away with. So what we need to do is fight back. We need to work together and fight back. Yeah. Now we need to stop blaming each other. We don't want to blame the homeless or the welfare recipients or the immigrants. These are just devices to divert attention from the people who are really to blame. The people who are really to blame are the politicians and their friends. So please join, if you haven't done so, join Labour, join Momentum, and support the teachers and the doctors. Right, thank you very much.
Now, I think the junior doctors' dispute with the government really showed what the Tories' views are about the NHS and the staff that work in it. We would like to welcome Aislinn Macklin-Doherty, who's a change to the advertised speaker, who has broken her ankle, I believe, who's a local leader of the BMA at Whit's Cross University Hospital. Aislinn.
Don't worry, she is getting excellent care on the NHS today. So, my name's Aislinn, I am a junior doctor and I'm a member of the BMA. I have been a doctor working in the NHS for nearly a decade now, and I love my job. I love it. I love looking after patients. I've never wanted to do anything else. But most of all, I love looking after them in a system that allows me to treat everyone as an equal human being. I'm allowed to treat people on the basis of need, not on the basis of how much they earn, or how much they are worth, or their income, or their status in society, but as a human being. But what I have seen on the front line over the last 10 years in the NHS, quite frankly, terrifies me. And what terrifies me even more is that the British public are being lied to about what is happening. And what is happening is this: the NHS is being slowly dismantled, carved up and sold off for profit. And I think the British public are being lied to because the politicians know that we don't want this. 85% of the population is against the breakup of the NHS, so it would be electoral suicide to admit what they are doing. So there has been a very systematic, concerted propaganda campaign to try and distract everyone, to pretend it's not happening. And this is in large part what has led to the junior doctors' disputes. And it's very important to understand what is happening in the NHS to try and debunk some of those myths, lies and spin that we're seeing in the media. So to be armed with that, to have an informed debate, I think we need to know some of the facts. Fact number one, the NHS isn't just being underfunded, it is being historically crippled of resources. We currently spend about 8.5% of our GDP, so our national budget, on healthcare, which is about £110 billion a year. It's expensive, but it's worth the investment. What we are doing for the first time in history is systematically reducing the amount we are spending year on year on healthcare. So if you compare what the UK spends compared to the rest of the Western world, they spend about 10-11% of their GDP on healthcare compared to our 8.5%. We are billions lower than mark. And it's not because the money isn't there, we are just choosing to spend it on other things. The current government have set out a plan, the 5-year forward view, will intentionally reduce spending down to about 6% by 2020, 6%. What does that mean? What do cuts mean? It means that we have seen an unprecedented number of hospitals being closed, about a third, with many more planned by 2020. We have seen 40,000 beds axed in the last 6 years. We have seen a crisis in the number of staff in the hospitals. And let me tell you what that means for me on a daily basis. I look after cancer patients. I am the one taking the phone calls from distraught relatives, from patients crying, begging for me to admit them into hospital where there just aren't any beds. Patients who are bleeding, patients in pain, patients who can't breathe. And I desperately want to be able to bring them into hospital to give them the care they need, but I can't. Fact number 2, the NHS is being privatised at an exponential rate through the back door. The NHS actually no longer exists. In 2012, the Health and Social Care Act, which is basically one of the biggest privatisation acts in the history of the NHS, removed the Secretary of State's responsibility to provide healthcare for all of you. What it did is give it over to a series of commissioning bodies across England called CCGs. And what they have become is basically a gateway to open our NHS up to private investment. We have seen an exponential increase in Virgin, Serco, Circle and other massive corporations taking over the services in our NHS. They now provide hundreds of millions of pounds worth of services. But what does that mean? What's wrong with privatisation? Look at the railways. When a private sector comes in, they slash the quality of the service and the costs go up because they are interested in one thing and one thing only, return for their shareholders. What does that mean in healthcare? Well, what's expensive for them are the overheads, the doctors, the nurses, the drugs, the scanners, the hospitals. So they slash them. What do you think that means for patients? What does it mean for the quality of the care that I can provide? It goes down. And this is people's lives that we are talking about here. The problem with this is that healthcare is not the only area within which it's happening. As the gentleman has said, the teacher, this is happening in education, it's happening in housing, it is happening across the board. And it's important to understand that context when we understand the junior doctors dispute. You don't get 40,000 quite conservative individuals, committed, passionate, dedicated professionals to make the hardest decision of their lives, one of the hardest decisions of my life, to walk out in protest of what's happening, unless you've got a serious crisis. And that is what's happening in the NHS. The BMA, our union, entered into negotiations with the government to make our training and our pay more equal across the country 3 years ago. In 2015, a new government was elected, the Conservative government, with their manifesto pledge of a 7-day NHS, which, by the way, they're yet to define. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. We already have a 24-hour, 7 emergency covering the NHS. The key problem here is they want to do it without a single penny of extra money, without a single extra doctor, without a single extra nurse. And the problem is, and I think this was one of the main errors in this whole debacle, is the BMA agreed to that in 2015. Under pressure, they agreed to that. I think that was a grave error. The government did their own assessment of clinical staffing levels a couple of months ago, and they themselves released figures that there are about 50,000 clinical staff missing today, now, in hospitals. That's 50,000 doctors and nurses who are not there, able to provide the service that we desperately want to provide. That means I go into work one day, I have 20 patients, I know their names, I know their history, I know their families, I know their blood results. But if there is a gap tomorrow, I take on 20 more. Who is it that suffers? It's the patient. I'm running ragged trying to fight fires and stop gap, but it's the patient and their relatives and their family and society that suffers. And this is what junior doctors are standing up to. So I want to finish by making the relevance to the excellent people like John McDonnell, Jeremy Corbyn. I have never in my life been involved in a political party. I'm 33, not because I didn't have strong opinions, political opinions about how society should work, but because I was very disillusioned by seeing a series of politicians get up and say whatever it takes to get into power, and then totally contradict that and do whatever they like as soon as they get into power. I was also very disillusioned by what I saw as the merging of this neoliberal ideology across all parties, including Labour. So the idea that businesses, the corporation, that globalised markets are more important than people and their public services that look after them. And I totally could not vote for anyone who stood for that. That changed last year. That changed with Jeremy Corbyn. That changed with For the first time in my life, I have been able to sign up to a political party where it stands for the kind of things that I want to fight for. Things like healthcare, housing, social justice, peace, democracy. Things that we all want, but we just felt helpless to be able to bring about. Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell have been some of the most vocal advocates of renationalising and making the NHS public again. And I applaud them for that, because no one else is doing that, and I think they're setting the tone for the debate now in the Labour Party, and I really congratulate you both for that. They were both on our picket lines, they spoke on our last day of action, and I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart for what they have done. But I wanted to end by quoting what was written on the introductory pamphlet, the leaflet that was posted through the doors nationally when the NHS was introduced in 1948. It says, "Your new National Health Service begins on the 5th of July. What is it and how do you get it? It will provide you with all medical, dental and nursing care. Everyone, rich or poor, man or woman or child, can use it or any part of it. There are no charges except for a few special items. There are no insurance qualifications. But it is not a charity. You are all paying for it, mainly as taxpayers, and it will relieve your money worries in times of illness. That is what socialism is about. It is about looking after each other as human beings, not as consumers or shareholders or private interests. That's what people like Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell stand for. We're going to be rejecting our contract and back out on the picket lines next month.
Thank you, Aislinn, and I think I can speak on behalf of Redbridge Momentum to say that we will stand by you in that struggle, and we will fight with all our might to defend the NHS. Momentum groups have sprung up all over the country, In fact, I've been asked to announce by our friends from Momentum that Jeremy Corbyn himself will be speaking on this coming Tuesday at 7 o'clock at an accessible venue to be decided. And they would ask you to check their Facebook and Twitter pages at Momentum to find out more details. Watch this space. But anyway.
Yes.
Saira Afzal is one of the leaders of our neighbouring Momentum group in Waltham Forest, so I'd like to introduce Saira.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me at the back. Yeah? Okay, right, awesome. I'm really excited to have been invited to speak here in Ilford, and it's an honour for me to be able to speak alongside John. I'm one of the organisers in Waltham Forest Momentum, and I've also been a PCS union rep fighting for equality for a number of years. So I have heard John speaking at PCS conference for many years, and I've often wondered why he wasn't the Labour leader. But I think we have got the dream team now. I've never wanted to join any political party before, and never thought I'd ever join the Labour Party, especially after Labour took us to war under Tony Blair. Whilst Muslims weren't alone in vehemently opposing the Iraq War, the war is still a sore topic for many Muslims, as it resulted in the death of millions of innocent people, the vast majority being Muslim. Today, Muslims continue to suffer in war by all parties involved, including ISIS, which was created out of the Iraq War. Not forgetting the fueling of sectarianism in the region, drone strikes, Guantanamo Bay, and the supporting of brutal dictators. Since then, Muslims have had to face a number of draconian policies in Britain, stripping Muslims of basic civil rights, allowing for unfair detentions and trials, and the secret surveillance of Muslims has left them feeling alienated and like they can't voice their opinions without being demonised. They feel disillusioned and disengaged from politics completely. No matter how much the Muslim community denounces the atrocities carried out by ISIS and the like, we are still associated to them. The media doesn't want to hear the ordinary Muslims' views. They'd rather have people like Anjem Chowdhury positioned as their spokespersons. Unfortunately, even within the Labour Party, there has been some negative rhetoric about fighting extremists and controlling immigration. Not surprisingly then, Owen Smith is back in the prevent duty, which is yet another method to spy on Muslims, particularly in schools, colleges and universities, based on at times ridiculous assumptions, and a method by which it is being implemented is ruining young people's futures, with some dropping out of education altogether and with others being threatened with a referral for ridiculous reasons. One case like this involves a nursery threatening to refer a 4-year-old to channel the counter-extremism programme because they thought his drawing of a cucumber resembled a cooker bomb. Another example is where the president of the Students' Union was asked for the names of all the members in the Islamic Society, not wanting the details of any other society, just Muslims. I and many like me consider Prevent to be state-sponsored Islamophobia and racism. Despite there being widespread opposition to Prevent and its implementation by the National Union of Teachers, the National Union of Students and University College Union, as well as many Muslim organisations and civil rights groups. Jeremy has also criticised Prevent and has called for reform of this strategy. And whilst Muslims are having to deal with discrimination laws and the ongoing rise of Islamophobia in Britain, racism is on the rise as well, particularly after Brexit. People who have never in their lives been told to go home are now being told this. Even an English friend of mine who happened to wear a beard was recently told to go back where he came from. Is anyone surprised then with Black Lives Matter arriving in the UK? Things in America are as bad as they can get for Black Americans, but we aren't far behind here. Just a couple of days ago, another black man, an ex-footballer, was killed after being tasered by the police. Black people are more likely to be stopped and searched, more likely to be tasered, more likely to die in police custody, and more likely to be unemployed, less likely to get into further education, less likely to get the support they need with mental health. They face discrimination at every level, and it's high time things change. Whilst the cuts in social benefits, the bedroom tax and zero-hour contracts have reduced living standards, causing more people to turn to food banks than ever before, austerity is disproportionately affecting women and young people, ethnic minorities and disabled people. The reason why I joined the Labour Party last year and I am here now is because I support Jeremy Corbyn 100%. Values human rights, the welfare of people, and he wants peace in the world. Jeremy's anti-austerity policies is just what we need in today's Britain. Jeremy has regularly spoken up against Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, against racism and homophobia. Jeremy Corbyn is a great defender of all minority groups. You just need to look at his track record. He has lived his politics from day one. There is no doubt in my mind that he is a person to heal divisions and unite all of us in our common interest for a better, fair and equal society for everyone. One of the first things Jeremy did as Labour leader is attend a protest in support of refugees. The fact that he has consistently voted against all recent wars and has played a significant role in the anti-war movement, always calling for diplomacy over intervention, as well as his support for an inquiry into the Iraq war and apologising for the war as Labour leader, demonstrates that Jeremy is the only person that can heal the wounds caused by Tony Blair. Jeremy is a son. Of hope for all of us, and indeed for the country and the world. When have we ever been this positive about a potential Prime Minister? Never. I don't remember any time in my life like this. I'm still fortunate though. There are comrades amongst us that have been waiting for a moment like this for decades, many decades. One thing we can all agree on though, we need this change. Britain needs Jeremy and we are not going to let this slide us by. Jeremy will be re-elected and will become our Prime Minister. Now and the 22nd of August, when the ballot papers go out. Not only does Jeremy need to win, but he needs to win by an even bigger majority than last time, to send a clear message to the right wing in the party that Jeremy is going nowhere. So either respect the membership and democracy, support Jeremy or clear off. Not just by voting for him, but by speaking to anyone and everyone you can. I wear my Jeremy Corbyn badge proudly, and I'm often asked, why Jeremy? You can make a difference, whether it's by convincing someone to join the Labour Party, or giving people that bit of information that gets them involved and interested in politics. So many are disillusioned by politics, they have shut themselves out of the political system altogether, and we must do our best to bring them back home. Please join the Labour Party, join Momentum and get involved.